Community Manager for Hornbill. I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar for Redefining Insight into Change Management from Nadeem Mazhar, Application Consultant. Just to inform you, the delegate audio will be muted during the presentation to facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please go to the Go to Meeting Questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen, where we'll collect questions and answer them at the end. Thanks very much for taking the time to attend. I'll now pass you over to Nadeem.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction and a warm welcome to all the attendees. My name is Nadeem Mazhar, and I'm the Application Consultant at Hornbill. The topic for today's webinar on the 19th of March is Change Management and Introduction. So, who is this webinar aimed at? Organizations that are already utilizing change, however, want to gain a refresher. Organizations in the process of implementing change or thinking of adopting change process. And finally, organizations that are completely new to change management and want to know if the process will work for them. So the topics for today are the following. What is change management? So a brief introduction to change management, the different types of change management, so changes versus standard change versus normal changes. We'll have briefly touch upon change proposals, the requirements for implementing a successful change management process, the roles within a change management process, the typical steps in a request for change, and then after that we'll have a walkthrough of change management process within Supportworks. And after the presentation, you have the opportunity to ask any questions. What is change management? The most studied and discussed element of the ITIL discipline. In simple terms, the addition, modification, or removal of anything that could have an effect on the normal IT environment, primarily configuration items, i.e. assets. As I mentioned, today's webinar is an introduction to change and how the vital cogs in this process can be captured in Supportworks to aid your service desk. According to a recent study, 70 to 80% of service interruptions are caused by changes. In an ever-evolving IT world, with new gadgets, processes, and even the economy, change is unavoidable. Change is constant. Hence, it is why a process is designed to enable and capture this information. The scope of change management covers changes to assets and CIs across the whole service lifecycle. So in a real example, what is change? You do not need to enter a change request if you are performing a troubleshooting step to restore a normal service in response to an incident. In other words, if you're putting things back to the way they are supposed to, you're not making a change, but simply restoring a service. An example, if a user reports that the individual workstation is frozen and you determine that you must reboot, you may enter this as an incident. However, if an application server requires a reboot or reinstall and the action may have an effect on a large user base or even a critical user, this will be logged as a change request. So how does change fit within the ITIL process? In my diagram, you can see a very basic ITIL diagram, and it all starts off with configuration management. So this is primarily the asset database, and assets will always have instance logged against them in the service desk process. Over a period of time, a particular asset, for example, a server, may have ongoing issues, and you may log those issues within problem management. Within the problem management process, you may find the root cause and a known error, and you wish to change this particular problem. So you assign this to the change management process, whereby you would do the analysis, find out the fix, and once you've completed the fix, you then reassign the changes to configuration management and update the asset register. This is really a basic diagram of change management within ITIL. So how can change management help your business? I'm going to briefly describe some benefits of change management to your organization. Successful change management both protects the services to the business or customer, but at the same time facilitates changes without unnecessary bureaucracy. A good change management process will increase visibility of changes within an organization. For example, if a server is in the process of being restarted due to configuration, if this is communicated in an efficient manner, users will be better placed to act. This will also maintain a good view of the change window. Having an efficient change process will enable businesses to maintain the changes within the timescales and therefore provide better estimations of quality, time, and cost. I would say the most important value of change management would be to maintain performance and risk capture. For example, if a change is failing during the change management process, it can be tracked and failed before being deployed in a production environment. If a risk is assessed properly, then the costs of rejecting a change far outweigh a change that has been deployed and can damage an organization process further down the line. In an ever-evolving world, there are always new regulations, government protocols, and legal requirements to capture such information. For example, if change may involve a supplier, they may have their own legal requirements or deployment methodologies, and if it captures information, then this can be captured within the change management tool within Supportworks. And finally, accountability. An efficient change management process will hold to account the stakeholders within the change process when a decision has been made. As I mentioned, risk, even a tiny change, such as making a small database change overnight, if it's not captured, there's no visibility, there might be an impact on the database, and there may be costs associated with this. So this is some food for thought and some of the benefits that will help change management. However, there may be some possible problems in actually adopting change management, and these also need to be considered. We've already established that change is unavoidable. It occurs on a daily basis. So what happens if there's a huge volume of changes that need to get input into the service desk? With the volume of changes, this can be an over-bureaucratic, and if resources are thin, can be difficult to administer. It can often be perceived as a bottleneck. There can also be some cultural changes. So there may be difficulties in convincing staff and customers to use this element if this is the case. Also, change meetings. So if you constantly have change meetings, this can often delay the progression of processing change requests. And poor implementations. If processes are not implemented correctly, for example, inaccurate data in the first instance, this can hamper the change operation. For example, roles that are unclear, lack of integration with configuration management, and also poor planning. So as I mentioned, example of a volume of change requests, change is constant, and unless your users are happy with using, for example, old school equipment, then, for example, if your users are happy with using old IBM PCs, then you may not require change management. But obviously, within an organization, you have new monitors constantly, then this is something that can be recorded within the change management process. So, what would happen if you have constant stream of the same change requests being logged versus the odd change that would occur on an ad hoc basis? This is where we define our standard change and normal change processes. A standard change is also known as a pre-authorized change. It is a recurring, well-known, low-risk, and relatively common task, and this follows a set procedure or workflow. Simply put, this can be defined as a pre-authorized change, and they can be logged and tracked via a different mechanism, such as a service request. The advantage of this is that this will remove the pain of volume. Logging a recurring task can be tiresome, and there will also be pre-approvals involved and less bureaucracy. In best practice, this still falls under the jurisdiction of change management. Some typical examples of standard changes include password resets, software requests, or a new starter or joiner, as these are often ongoing processes within the organization. A normal change, actually a funny way to put it, would be simply put a request for change. Any other changes that must follow the complete change management process is non-standard, and normal changes are often categorized according to risk and impact to the business. This would often require a full change management process, and these are often reviewed by the Change Advisory Board. It is logged as a request for change and will have different approval rejection at different stages. When it's reviewed by the Change Advisory Board, they will provide the change manager advice in order to approve and reject the change. Some examples of a normal change would be a new server deployment, as this doesn't happen on a regular basis, and also office move, unless you are into moving offices on a regular basis. I want to briefly touch upon the subject of change proposal, which can be captured within Supportworks. A change proposal is used to communicate a proposed change. The purpose of change proposals is to assess risk, impact, and feasibility before actually designing the activities, and is used to qualify the items before they enter the formal change process environment. Users can advocate the project or service with an associated business case, and usually in some change meetings you can simply have change proposal and go through the change proposals, and then if they are accepted, put them through the formal change process, if not rejected, and they won't be recorded in a formal change review. So what constitutes a good change process design? There are some things to consider, and we'll now discuss the vital cogs to good change management design. Really think about what change management would bring to an organization. Sometimes customers will think, I've got the change management module, I'm going to implement it because we just simply have the module. However, you have to factor in the resources, budget, time, and knowledge to bring the typical subject matter experts within on board. The change team will have to fully articulate the benefits of the change process to each department in an organization to really create a culture of change. Again, factor in the impact of change, whether this will impact your resources and your budget. If you feel that there are certain requests that are recurring, such as password resets, think about the different change types and focus more on creating service requests. So really differentiate the difference between standard change and normal change. Establish clear roles in the change process. I will discuss this later on in the slides. A lot of reasons why changes fail is that each member of the change team is unclear of the roles, and also the politics can play a key part in a failing change process. I would say the most important part in a change management process design is to actually design the process. So establish a clear process before implementation, so do lots of diagrams. There are various tools you can use, such as Visio, and using Supportworks, you can use the BPM tool, the Business Process Manager, to sketch out the ideas before deploying to a live environment. If this process is designed incorrectly, there is a strong chance that the change will fail. Again, a lot of organizations start implementing change without thinking about the key outcomes. What do they hope to achieve within a change process? I would think about the key performance indicators and reporting metrics as a key factor in designing your change process. And finally, keep it simple. If you're in the process of adopting change management, start from a small approach, and as you fully mature, you can start defining complex and more detailed version of ITIL components, such as release management, to tie in conjunction with your change management. So what are the typical roles in change management? There are many, but I'm going to go through the key ones. A change manager is a person who controls the life cycle of changes. Her objectives is they are the primary point of contact and responsible for coordinating all of the functions and within a change life cycle. You also have a change owner. They could also be a change manager. However, they're much more hands-on into the nitty-gritty of the change life cycle. If they're not the change manager, they are a point of reference and they represent the change and pass on the findings to the change manager. They are likely to assemble the packages, ensure requirements are met, and also verify that information filled in within the request for change are verified and correct. You have the change initiators, and the change initiators are anyone within the business function who is allowed to raise a change. They are typically analysts or the end users. The Change Advisory Board, otherwise known as a CAB, they are the team involving the change manager and the key stakeholders within the business. They are an advisory body and they usually represent high-risk changes. The members of the CAB exist to support the change manager in the changes to ensure that they are adequately assessed both technically and within the business scope. These meetings are normally chaired by the change manager. And finally, you have the change reviewers. This could be a combination of the change manager or the change owner, and this role facilitates the review for each process and also close a change when all the fulfillments have been met. They'll also do a post-review of the change to look at the budget, the costs associated, and whether the change has met its timescale. As I mentioned, in a successful change process design, it'd be good to create a workflow. Here's an example of a typical change business process. Again, this varies from different organizations, but again, you can see the basic scope of a change process diagram, and you can use Visio or many diagram tools to create your change process. I will now give a brief overview of the stages in change management process. Usually a first stage is to initiate a change. This could have a placeholder status as awaiting assessment. Within here, a change request is created and logged. This can be in the form of an IT team, and the IT team can only create and initiate an emergency change. Otherwise, all other changes could come in from the self-service desk, from a phone, or within the service desk itself. The change initiator is responsible for the content and the level of detail so that the change manager can make an informed assessment. And some of the typical information required would be the justification for the change, the risk associated with the business, and the resources that are required to carry out the change. Once this information has been captured, it would then go on to a review and classify change phase. And you can have a placeholder status as in review. Typically, this will be assessed by the change manager, and if the change is deemed inappropriate or impractical, it will be rejected, but it still will have to be recorded. Some organizations who have a mature change management process will also have a right of appeal. So if the change is rejected, then the user has the option to appeal, and this can be discussed in a change advisory board meeting, and it can be overturned. If the change manager deems the request to be acceptable, then the next viable process is the prioritization phase. In this phase, the change manager will assign the change priority. For example, if the change is emergency and needs immediate attention, it could be assessed as medium or high or low. These are different types of impacts within an organization. The change manager may then assign a category, and such examples can be minor change, significant, or major change. Again, these will vary between organization to organization. Once it has been reviewed and classified, it can go on to a change advisory board meeting, and we have a placeholder waiting authorization. Usually, if it goes to a CAB meeting, it will usually be a high-level, high-risk or complex request. If it's a simple, normal change, then the change manager will have the jurisdiction to accept this change. And if it's a service request, by all means, you would not need to have a CAB meeting for a password reset, for example. In a CAB meeting, the change manager is usually the chairperson. The attendees would usually be the key stakeholders in the business. Within a CAB meeting, the meeting would have a presentation of formal review, any outstanding changes, or authorization. The CAB members can also present recommendations to aid an existing change or a new change, and also, as I mentioned, considerations for approval or rejection. So again, the right of appeal for a rejected change. With this meeting, it will have to be documented by the scribe, and all documents must be held within a central repository to be assessed by all the CAB members. Once a change has been authorized, it will go to a scheduled change. Only changes that are authorized will go to this phase. If it's been rejected, then it will not enter this phase at all. We'll have the placeholder pending assignment, and within this phase, the change will be prepared for scheduling. The change manager or the change owner will allocate resources, allocate budgets from other teams, or even allocate resources from suppliers to carry out the actions necessary for the change. There may be dependencies on the activities, especially the CIs. So if there's a CI that's affected, it will have to be identified, or if there's a number of CIs that are affected. CI stands for configuration items, or assets within your Supportworks system. And for example, if a new server is in the process of being deployed, then you have to mention the dependencies. So if there's any other computers, workstations being affected or users affected, this will be noted down within this step. You can also identify dependencies on activities. For example, you can choose an activity to start once a previous activity has completed, or you can have multiple activities that can work at the same time. Within this phase, the change manager, the change owner, can also identify a go live or completion date. You can also create test plans, and all documentation must be, all processes must be documented within this process. A brief point to mention: if your change management process is mature, it may also be worth consider release management. However, that would be another topic for another day. Once you've scheduled the change and you put all the activities in place, it'll be time to do the implementation. I'll place the placeholder in progress, and within this phase, analysts will carry out the activities that have been assigned to them that you've identified in the scheduled change. If these tasks are dependent, then one activity would not start until the previous activity has completed. For example, if you're doing a change request on building a new laptop, then if there's one phase, for example, add software, but there's a previous phase that's delivered the actual laptop itself, you of course cannot install software because you've actually not received delivery of the laptop. So these are dependencies. So once you've actually received the laptop, entered it into the system, then the activity and completed the receiving of laptop. Once it's been completed, then the next activity can start, which is to install the software. And within Supportworks, you can enable email triggers to be sent out once activity has started. Once you do the deployment, you can start testing the changes within this phase. The reason for this, you can start identifying issues, and even at this stage, the change can be failed if the task criteria has not been met. In this process, it is the duty of the change manager to oversee the entire process and make sure that the activities are completed within time and budget. Once you've completed the implementation and testing phase, you may now go on to the review stage. Now, often overlooked, the review stage can be a vital step in assessing the success of the change. For example, if a new server has been built and deployed, how can the organization deem whether it has been beneficial? The whole point of this review phase is to identify whether the change has met its desired goals and objectives. The CAB members can often be involved in this process as well, and also identify whether there are no after effects, such as availability, performance, or security issues. Also check whether the change is within the timescale and budget, and most importantly, service review. So, for example, such as a service request, if you have continuous service requests and it results in an incident management process, then the team members will review this particular process, whether there's any bottlenecks within the process, and whether the process could be improved next time. And finally, once the users and stakeholders are content with the end result, this will result in a sign-off. And the placeholder then if successful, the change can be closed. And you can put a placeholder, complete change. I've given you a taster of change management, some brief points to think about. I'd now like to give you a brief walkthrough of how this information is captured within Supportworks. So here's Supportworks, and as I mentioned, the first thing is to design your business processes. So I go to Manage Settings, Process Settings, and this will open up the process settings. I've got quite a number here, but I'm going to show you the ITIL change request, which is the top process. If I just open that one up, and this is a brief description. If I go to process stages, these are the components that I've mapped out. So I would usually have a diagram that would display this, and you can see the different classification stages within this process. I'm now going to log a change. There are two ways of doing this. You can either log a new change within the help desk view and change request, and this will open a completely new change request with a blank form, and you can add the users, and you can add the different requests and information manually. But I'm going to open a change from within a problem record. So I go to my service desk view, open up my problems. I'm going to search for the problems. I'm going to choose one email server failure. Just open that one up. And the advantage of this is that I'm able to copy across all the records within a known error into a change management record. So here's all the information captured. I'm going to go to Actions and raise a new change request. And this will open up a change form. Here's an example of a change form, and these are the different settings that these are different options you can do within a change request form. You have the request by, and you have the subtabs. So the analyst is the person who would log the action, the actual change request or initiate it, and then you have the customer records. So if the customer initiates the change record or is affected, then you would enter the information within this request by phase. You also have the settings menu, and this section provides details for the properties of the change. I'm just going to classify this with a custom SLA. So I'll just do a change management SLA. I'm going to do the urgency and the priority as a medium priority change. So put it to the high. And then the most important factor, as I showed you the business process earlier, I'm going to choose the ITIL change request. These are the steps that I've created to enable this change process to take place with the different authorizations and the jumps associated. And then I'm going to choose the required by. So this change will be required by, I would say, the 25th next week. Enter the information, and as a change initiator, I may wish to put additional information into the description field. So I'm just going to put a require full server reboot. This is just an example. I'm not very familiar with email server failures. I'm going to log in and accept the call. And you have the option to email and also open call details from this actual change request itself. I'm not going to do this now. I'll click OK. And it will close the change request form. It will go back to the known error form, which I'm going to close. And to view the change record, I'm going to go to My Changes and scroll all the way to the bottom to see the last change record, which I just logged. I'm going to open that one up. And here's the change form. And I'm going to have a quick talk through. So you have the stage option, which shows you which stage the change is at, and the process and description. Then you have the options menu, which I classified within previously, and you can choose you can reclassify this change. You can also choose charge center, the different contracts, and the environment that's associated with it. Here's a quick look at this form. The change schedule. This enables you to add activities on the fly and to be shown within the Supportworks page. I'm just going to add a quick one to deliver, and I'll show you how this joins with this particular process later on in the demonstration. I'm going to choose a deliver the change required and deliver, and you choose a start date and end date when this will appear in your change schedule. This error message pops up because this particular information falls outside the service window. Again, it's due to the implementation, but because this actual request, this email server associated information, if I go to the associated information tab, there's a CI associated with it. And if I click on the configuration item, if I go to the availability tab, you can see the operational hours. So if the change schedule occurs outside the operational hours, then the warning message will pop up. I'm just going to close this window and click OK for now. And you can see in red, the warnings exist about the activity schedule. If I go to the assessment tab, and this shows the information such as a summary, so a box of summary information. The reference tab lists steps and references to external documents for the backout information, such as affected business areas. So this is quite important. This will show you if there's any additional people outside the scope. For example, if the finance department is affected by this server failure, then you may wish to add the associated CIs. Then you have the backup details, so it enables you to enter the backup plan information for that change. And the timing tab allows you to define timing information for that particular change. Okay, if I go back to the stage process, and I showed you the business process manager and the different steps associated with it, I'm now going to associate this change as a major change. And if I save this, and you notice it opens a new form called the authorization form. And you can see the stage, so it's automatically, once I select major, I've jumped now to the review and authorization phase. I have 3 authorizers that can be within this change, and they have an authorization level of up to 100. So 2 people, one with 80 and one with 25, must say yes. I'm going to say yes to this person. The key says yes, and I'm going to choose Rosemary, who's going to also say yes to this change. And once the combined level has reached 100, I'll click Save. It will automatically be authorized and automatically go to the next stage, which is the change, building, and implementation phase. going to classify this as work in progress. And you notice there's a task tab, and this enables the change activity tasks within the change itself. And these are assigned to the support group. I'm now going to forward and accept these tasks. So let's just say they've been completed or worked on. And again, you may have one task, you may have many tasks, and they can be dependent on each other. So updating CIs will not occur unless the implement task has started, or testing will not start until the update has occurred. So once I've completed the activities within the change, I'm now going to change the status to work completed and save this. And this will put forward the change to the next stage, which is to review the change request work. I'm going to quickly go through this, but you can update within a change form. In each of the different forms, you can update the core and add additional information. So I'm just going to quickly review this, and I'm going to say, yes, I'm happy as a change manager. I'm going to complete this request successfully and click Save. And this will go to the review change request outcome, which I've applied in my my business process. And as a change reviewer, I'm going to say, or change manager, this has been completed and successful. And as you can see, change has been completed, gives you the message, and this is a successful change request, a very simple one, which I've created. I'm now going to show you the change schedule. So as you can see, I've created a date for the change schedule. I'm going to show you how this is shown within Supportworks, and within a change schedule, you have a calendar, and you can see all the different changes that are scheduled within a calendar month. And you can also do various different sorts for this. Okay, that's a quick overview of change management. And now, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. And if you have any additional questions, now's the time to ask that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadeem. Currently, we don't have any questions in at the moment. But if you do, remember to use the GoToMeeting facility on the right-hand side. We'll give it a few minutes to allow you some time to put those questions in. So the first one is, what version of Supportworks was shown in the demonstration?
Good question. To start off with, I'm using 7.6.2. I'm using the ITSM application, and that's the version I'm using.
Perfect. Thank you, Nadeem. We'll just give it a couple more minutes.
Sure. So there's a lot of information to process, I can understand.
We don't seem to have any more questions coming through. However, oh, no, sorry, as I said that, we do. Was the change logging form shown in the demo standard out of the box, or has it been modified or personalised in any way?
The change management form is standard out of the box screen. However, the process is something that can be customised, but in a way that the customer can customize this. So it is known the different steps is customized using the BPM, or the Business Process Manager, and you define the jumps, the sequential order in which the change is logged. And once you configure that, you're able to test that and then deploy it within your live environment. So really the only customization, which is not really a customization that would affect the system in any way, is the Business Process Manager, which is because this varies between many different organizations. So you'd have to create this, and a Hornbill consultant can help you create those business processes if you've not created them already.
Perfect, thank you. Is the change management functionality available in the professional version of Supportworks 7.6.2?
That's a good question. I've only worked really with the newest versions of Supportworks, but if you leave your details, we'll be able to get back to you with that particular question. That's okay. Thank you.
Not a problem, and as Nadeem said, we'll pick up with that one after today's session. Next question is there a Hornbill recommended method for mapping a business process into the BPM?
Okay, that's a good question. In terms of, from what I've seen of the out-of-the-box functionality, there is a couple of templates that are pre-populated, which also contains a diagram view of the change management process. One is I believe, a standard ITIL process, which I've shown in my mappings. Another one is probably a standard change. So these are the box that you can use as a template. However, as I mentioned, change varies from organization to organization. So what the Supportworks system would include as the standard may not work for organizations. So I would recommend sitting down, really thinking about how the change management process will really affect your business. Where we need a CAB. Some organizations don't even need a CAB change advisory board. They use very little or regular changes. Some things can even be logged as a service request. So if you have like constant parcel reset, why would you need to have a change advisory board meeting every month, every week to discuss these type of changes if they're the ones that you would do on a regular basis? The value add for change management for a small organization would be if you're classifying an office move, for example, and this is a major project, you need to identify what the CIs or the different components required for a successful office move. Then for this one-off activity, I would recommend designing a vast change process to log within Supportworks, but a lot of the times, a lot of these requests can be logged as service requests, and also within, because they're pre-populated, you can also assign service wizards to them. Again, this is another topic for another day, but service wizards are predefined. All the information can be captured within the self-service wizard, which the end user populate, and once it's been logged, it will be logged as a service request, which you can then convert to a request for change. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. The next question is it possible to configure the change calendar within Supportworks and output this to other files and locations such as into Outlook?
That's a good question. I must say I've never tested this outflow because I've always used the change functionality within Supportworks itself. But it's a question I can take back and look into and then get back to you. I'm pretty sure there is a yes or no answer to this. But again, if you leave your details behind, I'll be able to capture the information and send across to you.
Excellent, thanks Nadeem. I've just got another one come through. I know there is functionality to create and edit forms in Supportworks 7.6.2. Would I use this facility to create bespoke forms or templates to support the introduction of the change management process within my own organisation, as long as that process information data was captured within the tool you showed us?
With the edit, that's customization, and I would always recommend against customization due to application updates or some form update or another. So you can use a form to capture any bits of information and input that within Supportworks within change form. Again, as I mentioned, I wouldn't recommend customization unless there's specific information you wish to capture and do some KPIs and metrics on that. So to answer your question, there is option to customize if you have the relevant license to do. I believe it's the development license. But I recommend using the standard forms to start off with. If you're a very mature change organization, then if you know there's information that you wish to capture, then you may be able to edit a few bits and pieces. But I recommend really to capture information, I would use the business process manager tool to create different jumps and to capture information and question answer sessions within there. That's my recommendation.
We don't seem to have any more questions coming through. However, if anything hasn't been asked, we'll follow up with the ones as Nadeem mentioned after the session. But if there are any others that you want answered after the session, feel free to email myself or your RM, and we'll pass them on to Nadeem or the relevant person internally to make sure that they're addressed. So just on behalf of Hornbill, I'd like to thank you for attending. Thank you, Nadeem, for hosting. I hope that everyone found it useful. Just to let everyone know, the recording will be made available on the customer forum and the Supportworks YouTube channel shortly. Thank you everyone for today's time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Hornbill Academy on the 2nd of April, where we'll be looking at autoresponder entries. Thank you.